What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again at A4, another game review and a special Kickstarter review. And today I'm very excited to check out Scythe from Stonemaier Games. This is for 2 to 5 players, ages, let's say about 13 plus. It'll take you an hour and 55 minutes to play. Yeah, it really does say that. But in Scythe, you are going to be taking control of a guy who's representing his country, and you're going to have mechs, and you're going to have meeples, and you're going to get resources, and you're going to be exploring a board and having encounters, and, you know, you're going to be trying to gain popularity, and you're going to be trying to recruit people and build buildings and do all sorts of stuff. There's tons of moving parts and pieces in this game as you try to get 6 stars on the board and gain the most coins in the end. What am I talking about? Let's open it up and I'll check it out. I do want to mention the middle part is extremely lengthy, so if you just want my thoughts on the game itself, click to the end. But let's check out Scythe.
Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Scythe from Stonemaier Games. Now, before we get started, I do want to mention this is the promotional copy I have in front of me, so take everything you see here with a grain of salt. Everything's going to look nicer and shinier and prettier when it gets to you. So first and foremost, we got our handy-dandy rule booklet. It is 29 pages, double-sided, full of color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, all the stuff you love to see in a rule booklet. And I must say, this is a very well-done rule booklet, despite the fact it's a daunting rule booklet. But I would say it's a very readable rule booklet, even though it's 29 pages. So in Scythe, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be trying to acquire the most coins by the end of the game. You're going to be acquiring these coins by doing lots of different things. You might try doing combat or recruiting things or getting mechs onto the board or getting popular or getting powerful. And that will all make sense when we go through the 6 ways you'll get stars on the board, because the game is going to end when someone has gotten 6 stars on this little track up here, which we'll zoom in on in a little bit. Now, normally in these kind of things, I go over the components that I get into the gameplay. However, there's so many moving parts and pieces in this game. I'm actually going to go over some of the components and then show you the different ways that you can get your 6 stars onto the board. So first, you're going to get your player board, and you're going to get 2 of these. These will be randomly selected. These will impact where you're going to sit, because as you can see, there's different little symbols on the board right here, and that's where different races are going to start. So for instance, this horse guy would start right down there where the horse symbol is, and this would be his little plot of land he's going to start with. Now, the name of the day with these player boards is asymmetrical powers, because both the top and the bottom are going to be different from everyone else's top and the bottom. So first, let's look at the top. So on the top, you're going to have your particular group of people. You're going to have 4 spots to put your mechs down here, because this is a mech game. And the interesting thing about the mech spot are they add to the asymmetrical ability. So when you build a mech, you're going to pick which of the 4 mechs you would like to build. Let's take a look at those nice, gorgeous little mechs already. And they're all different, as you can see. So you're going to pick the mech up, put it onto the board, and then you're going to gain a special ability. So you might get more movement. You might be able to move across rivers to farms or tundras, which can really help you potentially get to the factory or get to different spots that you'd like to go to. Before combat, steal one of the opponent's combat cards at random. This can really sway the game, especially if they have some powerful combat cards. Also, in the upper right-hand corner, each faction is going to have their own unique ability, and you really kind of need to play to this ability. So this one, once per turn you may spend 1 combat card as if it were 1 resource. So that's really valuable. However, when you start off the game, you're not going to start with any combat cards, whereas other groups might start with combat cards. You're also going to start with 5 of this symbol right here. You're going to see this symbol quite a bit. That is power. That means that's this little power track down here, which we'll get more into in a minute. So we got some stuff over here. This is for recruits. We're not going to go into that yet because it's not going to make much sense. So let's get down to this part of your player board. Now, everybody's player board, this bottom part of your player board, this is where you're going to be taking your actions. And the rule in this game is that you are going to be taking 1 action per turn of your every time, and potentially 2 actions per turn. So as you can see, there are 8 actions on this board, 4 on the top and then 4 on the bottom. And the way it works is you can do either one of the 4 on the top and then 1 of the 4 on the bottom. So you can take 1 action just like that, or if you're lucky, you can take the action on the top and then take the action on the bottom. So you're trying to plan it so that you'll be able to take the action on the top and then the action on the bottom so you can maximize what you're doing on your turn. But each player is going to take 1 or potentially 2 actions per turn. Now also, this guy's going to start off, and he's going to start off with 2 secret quests, which is this little eagle with the letter. They're going to start off with 4 popularity, which is kept over here on the popularity track, which we'll get more into in a minute. And then they're going to start off with 5 coins, and that is also going to change. I'm not going to go over the actions right now. We'll go over those in a little bit once we show you how you can get stars on the board, and it'll make more sense. So let's take a look at the board. So you're going to be taking your character all around this board right here, and each of the characters is really gorgeous and cool looking as well, so we'll get you a glance at those. So we'll go over some different spots on the board. We already mentioned the different spots you're going to start at, but there's cards, and more cards here. So the first kind of cards you're going to see are these big green cards right here, and these are going to be encounter cards. These are some of my favorite things to do in the game. Essentially, you're going to show this picture to everyone at the table, and then you're going to read off the 3 potential options that you could take. So let's take a look at this one. So we got some guys in the snow, there's a mech here, and you'd read it out loud and you'd say, all right, take orders from your superior with humility. Gain 1 combat card and 1 popularity. That's not too bad. That's a good thing. Give the villager a ride home on your horse. You're going to pay $2, but you're also going to gain 4 wood, which can really help you out. So you'll have 1 thing you can do for free, 1 thing that'll be a little bit expensive, and then generally at the bottom you're going to have 1 thing that's going to be really expensive and also somewhat humorous, which was an added bit I liked to this game, that there's humor. Threaten to create an avalanche with your bazooka. Pay 2 popularity to enlist 1 recruit. This is very valuable. So essentially you're just going to be able to get somebody else on the board, so it'll be very helpful. So when you go to these encounter spots, which are going to be denoted by this little green symbol right here, and they'll also have something on the board to signify that no one's had the encounter, you know you're going to get something good. It's just a matter of what you're going to get good is going to be random. Well, you're going to have 3 options to choose from. So I really enjoy the counter cards. You're going to be going around the board getting those. Other spots on the boards are these red ones right here. You might notice that there's mines, and mines are going to be able to travel, help you travel faster, because you can go through one mine and go all the way to the other mine, which can potentially, help you in getting somewhere you want to go or attacking someone. Now you might notice that there's little symbols on the board because this is a resource gathering game. You're going to need to gather resources in order to build everything you want to build. And there's 4 main kinds of resources in the game that are going to be represented by cubes, I do believe, up there. You're going to have oil, wood, grain, and metal, and you're going to use metal to build mechs. You're going to be using oil to upgrade things. You're going to need wood to build structures, and then you are going to need food in order to enlist recruits. But that doesn't make much sense to you now, so I'm not going to get into how that works. So, continuing onward, let's get back to the cards. Next, you're going to have 2 objective cards that you need to complete. You only have to complete 1 of them, and that's going to gain you a point. We'll get more into that in a minute. There's also factory cards over here, and factory cards are going to give you, and only you, an additional 5th action you can take. But you have to go to this factory in the middle of the board, which is going to be a ways to get there. But that will give you a really powerful action. Last but not least, card-wise, we have attack cards, which are right over here. They're going to be between 2 and 5, and there are 4 5s and 12 2s and all the stuff in the middle. And these just have nice-looking artwork in it and numbers in the upper left-hand corner. You'll be using those in combat. We'll get into that next. So let's see if we can get everything off the board right here, and I will show you the different ways that you are going to be able to win the game. Get stars on the board, I should say. So right here we have our big tracker, which is where you're going to be keeping track of your stars. So there are a lot of different ways you can go about winning in this game. The first one is you can have 16 power, and your power track is going to be right down there. And how this works is you're going to be able to gain power through doing different actions in the game. So let's take a look back at our handy-dandy little player board and see if there's any ways we can gain power on here. So for instance, if you went right here, you can do the bolster action, which means you'll pay a coin and you'll be able to gain either 2 power or 1 card. And you're saying, well, there's 3 spots there. I'll get more into how that works, but there's actually going to be an upgrade mechanism that we'll talk about in a little bit. Next, you're going to be able to have popularity right here. The popularity track is going to be right over here. And this is a very difficult track to go up. But the interesting thing about the popularity track is that's going to impact how many coins you're going to get at the end of the game. So let's take a look at this popularity track. So at the end of the game, this popularity track says if you're in this spot, if you have 0 to 6 popularity, for every star you have on the board, you're going to get 3 coins. If you get to up here, you're going to be able to have 4 coins. And then if you get all the way to the top, you're going to be able to gain 5 coins based on how popular you are. Also, you're going to gain more coins at the end of the game based on how many territories you control. And one thing I want to mention is that the factory, we talked about the factory a little bit earlier, it's very valuable. It's going to be worth 3 territories. So it can be worth potentially up to 12 coins, which is a lot of coins. And last but not least, for every 2 resources you have, you're going to gain coins as well. And the popularity is going to sway how many coins you're going to get at the end of the game. Now, for getting the stars on the board, you have to get all the way to 18. You don't have to stay at 18. And same with the power track we just talked about. You don't have to stay at 16 power. You just have to make sure at some point you have 16 power, at which point you'll get the star on the board. Then you can spend all your power, spend all your popularity, and waste it all. So next, you're going to have these 2 symbols right here, which means you're going to get in combat. Because in a game with mechs, you are obviously going to have some combat, right? That's just how it works. Now, while most of the time your mechs are going to be nice, they're going to be moving meeples and doing sort of stuff like that, eventually what's going to happen is you are going to land on the same space with someone else and stop there, and you are going to have a combat. And how the combat works is a really intriguing system. You are going to get this spinner here, and you're going to be able to spend between 1 and 7 of your power. And that is on the power track, as we mentioned, right down there. So you're going to be able to spend between 1 and 7 of your power. You're going to do this secretly. Now, also, you're going to be able to spend some of your battle cards, which remember were these cards over here denoted between 2 and 5. And you're going to be able to spend as many battle cards as you have either mechs or your character, which is your special guy you're going to be moving around the board on there. So for instance, in this particular combat scenario, of course I don't have any of the same colors. Let's just pretend this black and white mech are the same team. Let's just pretend they're both white. So that would mean that the white player is going to be able to play 2 battle cards and do their little spinner right here. And then the blue one is only going to be able to play 1 battle card and their spinner right there. So the blue one is at a disadvantage. Now, once you spend power, so for instance, let's just say that the blue guy comes out swinging with a 7, and this, he reveals it, and he's got 9 power. That is going to be his power, and depending on who wins that, someone is going to be forced to retreat. Now, what I want to mention here is this blue guy now loses all 7 of his power. So if he was at 8, he would go down to 1. So if you're trying to get that star for getting to 16 combat, you really want to try to avoid combat during the early or late parts of the game whenever you're trying to acquire that. Your card goes away, and the winner of the battle also loses their power as well. The loser is forced to retreat all of their characters they have on there, even if they have meeples or whatnot, and they have to go back to their starting space. Why do you want to get in combat? Well, because the thing is, let's pretend that this blue guy over here had a meeple on board, and he also had, say, 2 resources. Now that the black and the white guys, because they're both white, we're pretending, have taken that over, that is now all their stuff. So they now have these resources. They'll be able to spend them. They, for all intents and purposes, own that space. So they've essentially stolen their goods. So you're going to be able to get 1 star if you get into a combat, and that is the only way you're going to be able to get 2 stars for doing the same thing, because if you get, you can get into 1 combat, get a star, and if you get into a 2nd combat, you'll get a star. Now, continuing onward, we have the eagle with the letter. And we mentioned that very briefly earlier, and that is going to be these cards over here. And these cards over here are going to be your quest cards. And generally, you're going to start with 2 of these quest cards. These are going to be something you're going to build to throughout the game. So control at least 3 farm territories at the end of your turn. Farm territories are the ones that produce food, by the way, and they're going to be scattered all around the board. So this is going to be a particularly difficult one, because maybe you might start with 1, then you might have to go here to 1, but then you're still going to have to find a 3rd one, which is going to be a ways away. Let's see, have 1 factory card, at least 1 mech, and no more than 3 workers. So if you have that on a space, then boom, you're going to be able to turn in your thing and complete your quest. Now you're going to start generally with 2 quests. You can only complete 1 of your quests unless you're one of the special factions that will be able to complete both of their quests. Next spot on the star track we want to talk about is the meeple track right here, the meeple spot. So essentially this means, it says meeple times 8. That means you're going to have all 8 of your meeples out on the board. So when you first start the game, you're going to have 2 of your meeples on the board on the spots right next to you. So for instance, in this example, we'd be able to produce food and other meeples. Now, how do you get more meeples onto the board? It's a very interesting track right here because you're actually going to have all your meeples on this spot right here. They're all going to be covered up like so. And as long as you have the meeple on the reproduce meeple spot, you're going to be able to put another meeple onto the board there. However, when you pick it up, right now it would be free. The next one you pick up is going to cost you 1 power to produce. The next one, 1 power, and then this one's going to cost you a power and a popularity. So in order to get all 6 of those on there, it's going to cost you a lot of power, a lot of popularity, and then a coin at the end. So in this space, this is all about producing things. So for instance, produce with meeple on, so you'll be able to look at 2 of your hexes and produce that. So in this example, if we had 2 meeples right here, we would get ourselves 1 oil, and we'd have ourselves 1 additional meeple we could pull off of our board, and that would be our turn. Now we potentially would then have the option to spend food and do something else, but since we don't have any food right now, we'd not be able to do it. So that's how you're going to be getting your meeples on the board. Having 8 meeples on the board means you're going to be able to produce just a massive amount of stuff, but it is a lengthy endeavor to get it onto the board. Next, you're going to try and get 4 recruits onto the board, and this is where we're going to go back to our little board right here. So which one is the recruit spot? The recruit spot is going to be, let's see, right over here. And this means you're going to be enlisting new recruits. What do new recruits want? Well, they want food. So for this particular example, you are going to need to have 3 food, and then you'll be able to enlist a recruit, and you'll also gain 2 coins. And how enlisting a recruit is going to work is essentially there's going to be a little token on there that you're going to take off that will look like this. So you're going to take it off whichever one you'd want. So it might be here, 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 or here. You will take it off, and then you will put it onto your big board up here, and you will instantly gain that advantage because you now have more people. So you might gain more power immediately, more coins, more popularity, or 2 attack cards, depending on what you want. The other interesting thing about the recruiting phase is that in addition to those immediate 2 cards, 2 health, 2 coins, 2 power, you're also now going to have a spot open. So let's just pretend that you took it off this spot right here. That means anytime the person to your player on your left or right takes this particular action right down here, which is an upgrade action, which we're actually going to be talking about in a little bit, you are going to gain a power. So if you're a player to your right upgrade something, then boom, you're going to gain 1 on the power track, as we mentioned, which is over there, which is going to be incredibly valuable. So if you can get all 4 of your recruits out pretty early, you're going to be gaining a lot of stuff, even when it's not on your turn. So the recruit action is really interesting like that. Next, you're going to have the structures action, and the structures action is also going to be on your little player board right here. And how this is going to work is you are going to have various different things right here that are going to be covering up different spots. So this one's going to be covered up, this one's going to be covered up, this one's going to be covered up as well. And how you build it is you're going to go down to this action right here, and you're going to pay 4 wood, at least in this particular scenario, to build one of your structures. And now you're saying, why do you want to build a structure? And there's a couple different reasons why. Because each structure is going to give you its own unique advantage. So let's take a look at this one right here, this action right here. You're going to pay 1 coin, and then you're going to be able to trade, and you're going to be able to gain any resources you would like to gain. And then you're also going to be able to if you would like, or gain a heart. So it's either gain 2 resources or gain a heart. However, if you've taken off the armory, if you've built this structure, this isn't the right structure, but if you've built this, now when you take this action, you're also going to gain a power. This one will also let you gain a heart. This one will mean that you double produce when you produce on a certain spot, or it will add 1 to it, I should say, not double it. And once you've gotten all 4 of those onto the board, and you can't have them on the same spot, which will make it kind of difficult to do, you're going to be able to gain a star. Continuing onward to one that's actually kind of simple to explain, we have the ×4 mech symbol right here. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. As we mentioned, you're going to have your player board here. You're going to have 4 mechs covering up different spots, and if you build all 4 of your mechs, then you're going to get that star. How do you build mechs? Let's go back to our handy-dandy little player board. You're going to pay, in this example, 4 for metal, and then it will allow you to deploy 1 mech and gain 3 coins, which, boom, 3 coins. That's a big deal right there. That's quite a good deal of coins, especially if you're coin strapped. The last star, and one of my favorites, I think it's a really unique mechanic, is upgrade. And you're going to be able to upgrade things in this game. So let's take a look at our handy-dandy little player board right here with our 4 different spots for actions. So as you notice, we'll look at this one up here. This shouldn't be too difficult one. We'll go back to this spot right here where you're going to pay a coin, and then you're either going to gain 2 goods or popularity. Now you might notice that there is a little black box right there. And you're like, what's that little black box? Because when you start the game, you're actually going to have a cube right there. So you're going to pay 1 coin, and you are going to either trade for 2 goods or gain 1 heart. However, if you do the upgrade action, which is down here in the bottom left, you're going to pay 2 oil. It's going to allow you to complete 1 upgrade and gain a coin. So what is an upgrade? Well, let's just pretend that we took this action. We moved, which at this point would allow us to move 2 of our characters 1 space, or we could gain a coin. And then we would also have the potential of pay 2 oil to do an upgrade and gain another coin. So we're going to say that we did that action. So what we were going to do is we can take any of the cubes that are on the black spots up here and move it to one of the spots on the bottom with the little outline on there. So essentially we could say, all right, we're going to take this because I really like to gain popularity, and then we're going to look at the bottom parts and we're going to put it, you know, right here because I want to get my mechs out a little bit quicker. So now it's only going to cost you 3 metal instead of 4 to gain your mechs out. So let's just say a couple turns down the road you decide to upgrade again. So then you could take this one off of here, which is going to allow you to move more, and then you can move it here, and then it's only going to cost you 2 metal to get out your mech. And then if you did upgrade a little bit later, it would only cost you 1 because all of these would be covered up. So the upgrade is going to allow you to move cubes from the top, which means you're going to be gaining more, down to the bottom, which means you're going to be spending less. So the upgrade system, really, really unique and interesting. And those are going to be the different spots on the tracker right here. And you're going to be trying to gain 6 stars on those spots. Once you're able to have successfully done that, the game is going to end, and you're going to tally up who has the most coins by looking at the popularity track and the coins in hand. Any other big rules I'm trying to remember that I missed? We talked about the factory. Let's go back to the factory cards now that you understand a little bit of the symbology. So they're going to be exactly, there's going to be a different amount of factory cards on the factory spot depending on how many players you have. So in a 3-player game, you will have 4 cards on the factory spot. In a 5-player game, you'll have 6 cards there. And when you get to the factory, let's just pretend it's a 2-player game. You're going to pick up all 3 of the factory cards, and you're going to look at them, and you're going to decide which one you would like to keep. So let's take a look at these guys because they're normally they're generally powerful. So this one, if you take this as an action, and how you do this is you would just slide it right there. So now you have an additional action you can take. You're going to pay a resource, but you're going to gain a power, a popularity, and a coin. That's insane. You also get to move 2 spaces. This one, you're going to gain 2 coins, but you're going to be able to build a structure and gain a popularity. Wowzers. This one, you're going to lose a popularity, but you're going to be able to either enlist a recruit, which means in a one-time you're going to be able to gain your hearts right back, or you're going to be able to upgrade and then move again. The nice thing about these are you're always going to be able to move each turn once you unlock this, because normally how it works is you're going to go to your spot, take the 1 or 2 actions, and then your next turn you're going to go to a different spot because you can't go back to the same spot. Well, one of the special abilities that one of the classes has lets you, but normally you have to jump from point A to point B to point C back to point A, so on and so forth. But this allows you a little bit more options and a little bit more wiggle room. One last thing I forgot to mention. Holy moly, almost forgot another way that you can score points, which are going to be these. These are completely modular. These are cards that are going to be right down here, and these deal with putting structures on the board. So we mentioned that you're going to be able to place structures on the boards, which will give you various different abilities, which will give you various different bonuses, these guys right here. This is going to give you points based on where you place your structures. So for instance, if you have 2 structures in a row, if you have 1 structure, you're going to gain 2 coins. If you have 2 structures that are in a row that are connected like that, you're going to gain 4 coins. If you have 3, you'll gain 6 coins. And if you have 4, you'll gain 9 coins. Some of them will want you to be near lakes. Some of them will want you to be near the adventure spots where you're going to have encounters, but they will score you additional points at the end of the game. You'll tally it up. Whoever has the most points will be the winner of the game. And now, whew, That, in a crazy long nutshell, is how Scythe is played.
Ogre Dokri, Scythe from Stonemaier Games, coming to a Kickstarter near you very, very soon. What are my final thoughts? Let's go with the pros, let's go with the cons. First, on the con side, the game is not going to be for everybody for a variety of different reasons. The first and most obvious reason, and I had this happen to me, is that there are lots and lots and lots of stuff to take in. There's tons of moving parts and moving pieces. Don't mistake that for complexity, because once you know what's happening, it's not really that complex of a game. It's actually a relatively streamlined, simple game, but there's just tons of stuff going on and tons of different ways to get your stars on the board, as if you watch the middle part, you saw. And when you're first teaching this game, you can have a problem where people might check out. And they actually say in the rules not to teach all the rules because there's so many of them. But some people are going to want to know all the rules, and in turn they might check out, unfortunately. Also, 2 players versus 5 players, you're going to have a drastically different game. 2 players is definitely going to be more about building your machine and trying to decide what your specific strategy is going to be, which stars you're going to get on the board, whereas 5 players, it's Wild West. You're going to be having combats, and people are going to be fighting over the factory, and all sorts of cool stuff like that. I'm not mentioning it nearly as much as a con as something I did want to denote, that the game, I feel, does scale well, and I liked it at all the different player counts. It is going to be a different experience if you have 2 players versus 3 players versus 5 players, so just something to take note. Also, if you don't like asymmetrical abilities, if you're someone who likes to figure out how to game the game, this one might not be for you, I should say, because asymmetrical, wow, everything is asymmetrical. So if you don't like asymmetrical powers, this one might not be for you. Also, the game is on the lengthier side for some people. Now it says 1 hour and 55 minutes, which I thought was a really odd choice for a time length. But I understand why he put that there, because when you see 2 hours, you're like, oh, that's probably going to be a 3-hour game. And this is not generally going to be a 3-hour game. Now, if you get 5 players, it's a new game, obviously it's going to stretch on. But if you know what you're doing, the game really does play pretty briskly. Now, it's not going to be like something you're going to knock out in an hour or anything like that, but I feel like there's a reason why they didn't put 2 hours on the box, and that's because it doesn't feel like it plays as long. That might be because you're actively engaged in thinking about what you're going to do, but we'll get more into that in the pros. The last con I have to mention is one that somebody in my game group mentioned, and he thought that it was a little bit tedious, that there's too much forward planning. You are always planning for the next move and the move after that and the move after that. He didn't like that you weren't able to do as much as you wanted on your particular turn, because as I mentioned in the middle part, you're going to take either 1 or 2 actions, and then your turn is up. And then someone's going to do 1 or 2, and then 1 or 2, then 1 or 2, then it'll get back to you, and then you're going to take either 1 or 2 actions. And most of the time, especially early sledding when you first start the game, you're going to be able to do only 1 action. So the beginning of the game is going to be a little bit slow, especially as people are looking at the different actions and trying to figure out what to do. But I will say the problem could have been a lot worse if they would have done the action selection a little bit different. That's what I got on the cons. I want to get all the cons out of the way. And the cons, theme-wise, the theme does not come across as much as you might like. Now, they do really strive to put the theme into here. The artwork is absolutely gorgeous. The completed artwork, I really enjoy the encounter cards. They actually have a little bit of humor to them, and that kind of draws you in. The asymmetrical powers make you feel like a different person each time you play, which is nice. But the theme still comes across only a little bit, which in a Euro is more than most Euros can say anyway. Moving on to the pros, though, I really, really enjoyed my time with Scythe. This game is right up my alley. There's so many things I want to talk about here. So let's just get started. What I like about the game, let's get the shallow stuff out of the way. The artwork is very, very nice. The promotional copy I got was really nice already, so the one that comes to you is going to be even nicer, which is kind of a staple of Stonemaier Games at this point. I really enjoyed the gameplay. I really enjoyed how the action selection worked. I mentioned that someone thought it was a little bit tedious. However, to me, it was not, because I was always involved in everything. While I may not be looking at what my neighbors are doing, especially in a smaller game, I am always thinking about my next move and my move after that and what I could potentially do, because I like it. It has like the Twilight Imperium-esque thing where you're only going to take 1 action. So your turns don't really take that long. It's like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move here. And I'm going to move there. I can't upgrade, so that's my turn. And then it moves on to the next person. Then you're like, all right, what do I do next? I'm going to do this next, or maybe I'll do that next. And then by the time you think about it, it's your turn again. And you're like, all right, I'm going to harvest down here, but since I'm harvesting, that's actually going to give me the resources I can do to do that second action down here. So I'm also going to do this action down here, and then your turn is over. And it even says in the rules, and this is one thing I forgot to mention in the middle part, because there's a lot going on on the middle part. I like the fact that it even says on the bottom part that when you're doing the things down at the bottom, the next person can generally start taking their turn. So once someone does their top action, you say, I'm going to do this bottom action, but you can just go ahead and go. That's something I really like. Now, some people are going to want to say, I want to finish my complete turn before you do anything else because it might give you a strategic advantage, blah, 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 blah. But I personally like that. I love the encounter cards. Encounter cards are awesome, and so are the factory cards. I'm just lumping stuff together here because there's so much stuff I want to talk about that I like. The encounter cards are my favorite aspect of the game. I love going out there, going exploring, and not knowing what you're going to get. Sometimes it's a little bit of a gamble. Sometimes you're like, all right, I could do this action. It's going to be guaranteed to be productive. Or I could move instead, which is not going to be as productive in the short term, but if I get to an encounter, and this encounter has something really good on it, this might be an even better turn than I was expecting. But then you'll get to the chances when you get the encounter and you don't have the money or popularity to spend, and you're like, oh no, I gotta take the top action. And the top action is good, but you want the bottom actions because they're better actions. I like that a lot. And I love the factory cards. I love racing to the factory because if you're the first person to get to the factory, you can get one of those cards. And that is just going to sway how you play the game because those factory cards are super powerful and they're going to do some awesome stuff for you. And people are going to be like, oh God, I gotta get there. I gotta get to that middle part. And if you're stacked up on power, you can just get your guys there and kind of just defend the factory, keep people off the factory, which I like. And then even if you leave the factory, so if you say you get defeated and you're not at the factory, you can still keep your factory card. You don't lose your factory card, which I like. I like how all the tracks work. I like how there's numerous different paths to victory. I love the asymmetrical powers. Each faction, let me put this right here. Each faction will make you play the game a little bit different if you are going to be maximizing your strategy. You know, some of them are going to be able to cross rivers quicker. Some are going to be able to do the same action over and over and over again. They're just awesome. I love the upgrade tech. I love how the upgrade tree works. I love how the structures work. I love how the recruit system works because each one of those is going to cost you different things, and each one of them is a viable option early game, which I love. If you do the recruit thing, then you're going to be gaining stuff on other people's turns, which is great. Also, if you do the structures thing, you're going to be gaining things on your turn, gaining additional things on your turn, which can be really valuable. And then the upgrades. I love how the upgrade system in this works. So now things are going to give you more, and they're going to cost you less, and that is just awesome! Oh my gosh, I could talk about this all day. You can't tell, I'm a big fan of Scythe. This is one that I highly recommend if you like meatier games with more moving parts. It's not as meaty as like a 3-hour game, but it still has tons of moving parts, lots of cool decisions to make, gorgeous artwork, it's going to have fantastic miniatures, awesome asymmetrical abilities, and this is just one that I highly recommend. That is Scythe from Stonemaier Games, coming to a Kickstarter near you very, very soon. I'll be sure to post the Kickstarter link down below. If you enjoyed this content, please be sure to click on the subscribe button down below, and in the comments below, let me know, super speed, is that really that great of a power? Would you really use it to save people? I know I wouldn't. I would just run this much faster than everybody else, and then I would be like the greatest track and field guy, and I'd play professional football until I broke my leg or something like that, but I wouldn't even reveal my special ability. I would just be the fastest person in the world by just a teeny little bit. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think about super speed? As always, thanks for your time, YouTube.